Hey, what's going on, gang? Nate on the Stone here. Welcome back to my channel and to the 59th episode of The Rolling Stone. The Earth might be on fire, burning merrily as we speak. Society is collapsing around our ears, but rest assured that we are still here, providing you with the stories and tidbits to educate and hopefully to even entertain a little bit, although the primary focus is education. But, you know, if education is not fun, then you don't soak up anything at all, I should say. And so, our very first story, there's going to be a lot of, hopefully, education in this edition of The Rolling Stone. Maybe not as much entertainment, although I will do my best, because the stories that we are going to be covering are pretty grim, especially the first two. Okay, I mean, they're not grim in the sense of, I don't know, entire buildings being massacred by armed rioters. That hasn't happened yet. I'm still kind of looking on the horizon for when that is going to happen and when all of our elites and celebrities immediately defend the people who do that and bail them out. But, until that time, we have what we have for this edition to hold us by. And this first story actually is response to a clip that was making the rounds on social media. It is pretty bad, okay, when you watch it and then when you really sit down and think about it. It's about a minute long, so I'm going to play the whole thing for you guys. Here it is.
Excuse me. Hey, excuse me. I work for Black Lives Matter.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I work for Black Lives Matter. I'm sorry that I scared you.
That's okay.
But since I work for that company, my CEO has told me to come out today and to bring you on your knees because you have white privilege. So if they see that a white person is getting on their knees, that shows solidarity for the situation. And could you just please apologize for your white privilege? Just apologize.
I am. I'm trying to think of the right words to say because that's a big thing to say.
It's big.
That comes from.
It's large in this country.
I'm incredibly sorry that.
You know, with this country, we have that president Donald Duck, that clown in office. You know, he's brought a lot of bigotry, and you're not a part of it, right?
No, God, jeez.
No. And so, you know,
Thank you for letting me have a moment with a project.
Okay, you have a great day.
Alright, so there we are. Kneel before Zod. As, the actor's name went completely out of my head. General Zod from Superman 2, as he says to Chris Reeves' Superman. There are numerous things that are horribly wrong with this video. In fact, this is the sort of video, gang, that when you watch it, you should have a visceral reaction to it. I know I did when I watched it. I saw it for the first time on Twitter, being shared about, and I couldn't believe, actually, what I was seeing. That in 2020, a random guy could come up to a random woman and tell her to kneel down and apologize for her white privilege. Apologize, in essence, for being white. Now, we're going to break this down here. The first thing wrong with this, the first thing that just rips your stomach apart, at least rips my stomach apart, is the kneeling. Okay, we're Americans, or at least we used to be Americans. So, you're only supposed to kneel to God if, you believe in Him. Maybe symbolically, you could make a very far-fetched argument that you can kneel symbolically before the law, since that is supposed to be, in essence, our king, right? Just laws made with, as Cicero said, made with right reason in accordance with nature. Laws that actually recognize the essence of man and how man should act, with each other, and what a just society based on that looks like. You can make perhaps an argument about that, but aside from those two things, if you call yourself an American, you're not supposed to kneel. to anything. I guess unless you're a guy proposing to his girl. Then if you want to kneel, okay. But that's actually a very interesting comparison, because what does kneeling symbolize? And I think that this is really important and something that we've lost, especially as religion and especially as the sacredness of marriage has declined. We've lost sight of what kneeling means, what genuflecting means, because it is a sign of subservience, right? If you kneel before someone, if you kneel before something, you are saying in point of fact that that person, that thing to which you are kneeling, has power over you. You pledge yourself to it. This is actually why in the Middle Ages, vassals would kneel before the king to symbolize the king had authority over them. And when the king invested new people as his vassals, basically what that means is he would give them land. He would award them land, and then they would pledge their loyalty to the king and to his family. They would kneel before the king. It was a very powerful symbol that the king was above them, that the king was in charge, that they were loyal to the king. And that is what kneeling still means. In fact, it's being demanded that that's what it means. You have to kneel to apologize for being white. That is what you have to kneel towards. Several people on Twitter have actually kind of woken up, or they have finally found the people who have been saying this for a while, that this movement, these riots, these insurrections, they're not protests anymore, and they're not even simply political anymore. These are religious riots. Michael Tracy, he's an independent journalist. You can find him on Twitter. I think he hit the nail on the head when he said that these riots, these insurrections, they are the third great awakening in American history, right? We had a first great awakening in the 18th century. There was the second great awakening in the first half of the 19th century. We've had to wait now almost 200 years for the third great awakening, and it is here. It's just that the religion that is being flamed by the awakening ain't Christianity. It is this intersectional woke identity politics progressivism. And everyone is having to take a knee before it. Because if you've been on social media, if you have seen the signs from the photographs of these protests and riots all around the country, you might have seen a sign that says, "Silence is violence," or "Silence is oppressive." The good old days of being able just to meekly keep your head down, keep quiet, go about your business, those are gone. Every single damn one of us is sooner or later going, like this woman in that video, we are going to be asked, will you kneel down? Will you apologize for your privilege and for your whiteness? And at that point, everyone is going to have to make a decision. Okay, that's the first point. The second point, think about this again. Think about this again. I called him a random guy and a random woman. Focus on that. This guy, he doesn't know this woman. I would bet you anything that this guy doesn't know this woman from Eve. He doesn't know her name, doesn't know her history, her story, her dreams and ambitions, her setbacks, her sorrows, anything like that at all. Doesn't know any of them, but he comes up to her and he demands that she kneel down before him and before the movement that he represents. He is the avatar. In this instance, he is the avatar. He is the incarnation of this new revolutionary moment, as several people have actually been calling it. Okay? People have been calling it a revolution, a rebellion. Keep that in mind too. But he is the avatar of this revolution, quote unquote, in this circumstance. And he is telling this random girl to kneel down. For what again? For being white. Now again, random guy, random girl. These two I would bet you anything, have never met before, and probably will never meet each other again. Which means that this woman has never had any opportunity to do anything to this man. In fact, looking at the video, she looks to be about my age. Okay, so early 30s, late 20s, maybe, but she's on the good side of 40, if I can say that without meaning any offense. She's on the lower side of 40. Let me put it that way. That's a better way of putting it, because nothing wrong with being 40. That means that chances are, that she has been raised to respect everyone. She has been raised learning about slavery, about Jim Crow, about the genuine oppression and bigotry that was directed at black people in the United States for parts of his history, for the first parts of his history. So I would guess that she has never done anything knowingly offensive to any black individual that she has ever met. Again, because they're totally random in this video, she's never done anything to him. And again, I would guess, just based on her age, that she's never done anything to any black person at all. And yet, the mere fact of her skin color is enough to trigger this guy. She has to kneel down. She has to make herself subservient to him and his cause, and his organization, and his ideology. She has to get down on her knees and grovel, pledge her subservience to them simply because her skin is white. An accident of her birth makes her very existence oppressive to this guy and to his movement. It infuriates them that she is white, which is no different than what happened in the past, when people would see a random black person on the streets and just think that it was the end of the world. There is absolutely no difference here, which is why this is the creation of a pigmentocracy. This is the creation of a pigmentocracy. These rioters, these insurrectionists, they don't want justice. They do not want equity. They are, like so many revolutionaries in the French Revolution of 1789, they just want to be the masters. They want to have the power. They want to call the shots. They want to remake society in their own image. And that's what this symbolizes too. The very fact, think about this, the very fact of seeing this white woman on the streets infuriates this guy. Her very existence, someone that he doesn't know from Eve again, just makes him mad because her very existence is a crime, in a sense. Her very existence is a crime. That's the second point. Now the third point, to focus back on the girl. I understand that when a random guy comes up to her, again, if you rewatch the video at the very beginning, he says, sorry, didn't mean to scare you. She's obviously terrified of her life. Again, judging by what her age roughly is, she's been glued to her phone, she's been glued to her laptop, she's been on Twitter and Instagram and on YouTube, and she's been watching CNN, ABC, NBC, probably all the networks. She has seen what's been happening. She knows what's going on to an extent. So she is terrified. So I can partially understand why she would immediately get down on the ground on her knees and say, yes, I apologize for my white privilege. But I can only understand it to a certain point, because again, watch the video again and see how willingly she did that. There was no sort of protest. No sort of argument like, hey, I haven't done anything to you or to any black person. I haven't done anything, to anybody. I don't oppress anybody. When people, how do I put this? When people lose their independent spirit, when they can be cowed by the mob, I don't care who makes up that mob or what that mob wants. When people have lost their spirit of independence so that a random guy can come up to you on the streets and say, kneel down and apologize for your whiteness, and your immediate reaction isn't to kick the guy between the legs and then laugh and say, no, because I'm an American, I don't kneel before any man jack on this street or in these buildings because I am not a number, as Patrick McGowan so famously said in The Prisoner, I am not a number, I am a free man. When that isn't your initial reaction, you've lost your independent spirit. And when you have lost your independent spirit, your country can no longer be independent. Okay? The United States, if this trajectory continues, and at this point in time, as of this recording, I do not see that trajectory changing. At least not changing overnight. But when this is the trajectory, if that's the trajectory, then we can actually say that the United States is no longer an independent country. Because its people are no longer independent, because they have been so inundated, so marinated in these woke ideologies that any person coming up who says, kneel and apologize for this, like Pavlov's dog, they will immediately get down and say, mea culpas, mea culpas, mea culpas. You cannot remain an independent country when the people do not have an independent spirit. You know, John Adams said, I forget exactly when he said this. This was in the 19th century, close to the end of his life. But he made the point that the American Revolution was not simply the fighting that happened between 1775 and 1781. He said that the revolution had already happened before 1775. It had occurred in the hearts and the minds of the people. He made a very interesting and a very powerful point. He said that before a revolution actually happens, the people have to accept the revolutionary principles in their hearts and in their heads, because otherwise, if they haven't, then they're not going to start fighting in the first place, and you're not actually going to have a physical shooting revolution. Well, when the people have lost the principles of independence, when they've lost that, you can't have an independent country, you can't have a free country anymore. Because I would like to ask people, are you really free? Seriously, take a moment, pause the video if you want, and really ask yourself that question. Are you free? Are you free to tweet out all lives matter? No, you're not. Because somebody at some point may find that obscure tweet, or Facebook post, or Instagram story, and use it to hound you out of your job, out of public life, out of the community. As happened to Gary Napier, the NBA commentator, just this past week. We're not free anymore. We're not independent anymore. And the fighting spirit has gone from most people. I'm not saying that there aren't pockets of it and that certain people don't have that. They certainly do. But culturally, it is gone. Now, this intersectional woke religion, that is the new public faith of the United States. And like I said at the beginning of the video, if you don't acquiesce, then you will be punished. That's where we are. And until that independent spirit is actually recaptured and regained, that's going to be the road that we continue down. Anyway, that is story number 1.